Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome a friend to all of Arizona's children and families, and most of all to all of us who work in this important field, Nadine Mathis Basha.
Good morning, and thank you for your warm welcome, and Cheryl for that introduction. It's nice to have friends that go back 30 years and that you've shared, not only a professional journey, but a personal one. And I think oftentimes in our field, we do really connect deeply with people that we share this passion around young children. It's good to find those people and to develop those relationships and grow. We have to support one another. We've always been in a very challenging field. And I think we need to be a part of one another's lives and to support one another in that manner. So I'm very, very fortunate to be able to have, Cheryl's friendship and mentorship. She was my boss at one time. She didn't tell you that, did she? But Cheryl's been everybody's boss at one time. If you over here, a lot of us were involved with CDAs, and a lot of people worked for Cheryl, and she mentored a lot of people. And like I said, I was saying to her, she planted a lot of seeds that then bloomed in our field. I'm delighted, as I said, to be here today. A keynote is always a little bit challenging, particularly at 12 o'clock and before lunch, right? But I was so happy to see there were snacks out there, so maybe your stomachs won't rumble too much. I also think it's a little challenging because what you've been talking about, I noticed some of your sessions aren't day-to-day kinds of things, but that's what you're here for, is you want to know how to be a stronger teacher, how to do things in your classroom differently, how to engage with kids more effectively. And so sometimes a keynote is a little different than that, and it takes us shifting gears just a little bit from the day-to-day to the broader and even, I would say, more global level of advocacy and public policy. The past years of my career in early childhood education really have been spent at that kind of global level of public policy. And this is the work that led me to First Things First. For the 2 years leading up to the 2006 ballot initiative, I spent a lot of time traveling in Arizona and communities talking about the need in Arizona for an organization like First Things First. Then, for 2 or 3 years after the initiative passed, I spent a lot of time traveling around the state of Arizona talking to people about protecting these funds that voters had set aside for kids birth to 5, and why it was so important to invest in our young children. So it's just such a genuine pleasure to be standing here now to report on the progress that we've made, both in expanding programs for young children and in building this statewide system that prepares future generations of children for birth to 5 and what they're going to be facing in the future. A world-class education truly does start before kindergarten. We know that, don't we? It is our responsibility and our job to make sure that everyone else does know that. This work has never, ever been more important because the stakes for our kids are so much higher. Every day we're hearing about other efforts to improve education in Arizona, including the implementation of Common Core standards. If you've heard this language, Common Core standards, everybody, this is what it will be very rigorous for children. And one of the things I think about Common Core standards, they're talking about critical thinking skills. In the past, when our kids get into elementary school, they're measured, the Ames test measured, do you know X, Y, Z, it's kind of the rote memory stuff. Well, now they have to have critical thinking skills. Well, guess who does that better than anybody? Early childhood educators. And so it means our job is even more critical, isn't it, to make sure that children know how to think and how to think critically and how to take old information and apply it in new ways. And that's what I'm really thrilled that the K-12 system is starting to think about. We have been there, but we have a lot of work to do to prepare kids because it will be quite a different experience when they hit elementary school. There's also been a passage of something called Move On When Ready. And it's a little confusing because there's 2 move-ons when ready in our world, and I don't know how that happened. One is on the other end of the continuum in high school, which that move on when ready is really good. It kind of collapses the high school level system and lets kids kind of work their way through it. The other move on when ready, I personally don't feel is very good, because if children are not reading at the 3rd grade level, at the end of 3rd grade, they're going to be retained. Well, that kind of lies in the face of everything we know and what research does about retention of children. They will be retained year after year after year if they are not reading on 3rd grade level. That has tremendous ramifications. How many of you knew about this? It goes into effect this year. See, a lot of us don't know this is going to be happening to our kids. Well, what will start happening is the pressure will be pushed down more and more every year, and it will be really incumbent upon us to make sure that children are learning to read in the most appropriate way possible. So again, we have some real challenges ahead of us as children are having to face higher standards and higher stakes than ever before. So preparing them to meet these expectations by giving every child a solid foundation in which to build their learning is really not just something we desire or want to aspire to. It is now an absolute necessity. But in order to understand how far we've come along and where we've been to meet that goal, it's really important to acknowledge where we've started. After decades of little tiny steps and pilot projects, and we have some funding for this, some funding for that, and they just go away, a handful of people came together in 2002 and determined that the best way to galvanize the public around the system's approach to early childhood education was to have a ballot initiative. What resulted was this ballot initiative that is a tax on tobacco. It's 80 cents on a pack of cigarettes. But those funds are used exclusively for early childhood education help and family support programs that help more children in Arizona birth to 5 get ready for school and set for life. We have never had a funding stream before. We have never had dedicated money for this effort before this ballot initiative. And that's why it's been so important for those of you who worked hard to pass it and those of you who have worked so hard to protect it. It is our funding stream for our young children. Well, we managed to do that, and guess what happened right after that? The economic crisis happened. And so while we were busy engaging local leaders and we were out and having people talk and make decisions about young children and what they were going to do in their community and start setting up this infrastructure to deliver quality programs statewide, we were simultaneously battling the legislature who was going to take all of our funds away from us. But thanks to all of you, we really defeated that effort. They did put us back on the ballot, as we were talking about. Went back on the ballot, and we defeated it by 70%. 70% of everyone who voted said no, no, no. And that is huge, because you know what it said to our state leaders, our legislators, is we can't compromise the long-term future of our children in order to fix the short-term challenges that we face today. So I'm very grateful to all of you who made such a difference. Well, in the midst of all of that, we were still making progress on the work that we had to do with First Things First, and it's really a lot of your work. What I'm going to talk about today, the numbers that I talk about today, reflects the work of many of you. And there's some pretty big numbers. Just in this year alone, we distributed 61,126 parent kits. These are distributed to parents of newborns, and it's statewide. It gives them crucial information about parenting and about their young child's learning. 8,701 Arizona families enjoyed stronger, more supportive parent-child relationships through home visitation. Experts at the Birth to 5 helpline responded to 3,148 calls from caregivers of young children, answering their toughest questions and helping link them to resources as well. This is a big number. 47,969 caregivers attended voluntary classrooms in neighborhood settings on topics such as parenting skills, child development, literacy, and nutrition. And this statistic kind of breaks my heart. 466,453 food boxes were distributed to families with kids 5 and under to prevent hunger and developmental delays. the whole thing about food insecurity is so real and has such ramifications to children. And in Arizona, in the last economic downturn, our kids were hit extremely hard. And so while this is not what we envisioned for First Things First, that we would deal with food insecurity, the board felt it was absolutely critical that we do so. And so that's something that we'll need to continue to do, because kids have to be healthy and they have to be ready to learn, and they won't if their tummies are empty. More than 41,500 children were involved in early learning programs, your programs, committed to continuous quality improvement. About 9,000 infants, toddlers, and preschoolers receive scholarships to access early childhood programs. As we keep increasing quality, we have to make sure that it continues to be accessible to families, right? And more than 26,000 young children received oral health screenings and had fluoride varnishes that applied to protect them against dental decay. These are just a few examples of our biggest programs that we have accomplished. This is just in 1 year, everybody. This is a huge amount of work that you've all undertaken. They do represent children, and some of the children that you do teach every day and who now have a better chance of starting school prepared to meet Arizona's high expectations. And thanks really to the investment of voters in Arizona. And while it's important to celebrate these successes in the lives that change through this initiative, the true test of our efforts will be if we take these programs that are making a difference in the lives of kids and build them into a bigger, comprehensive, coordinated system that institutionalizes early childhood education and health for kids. We can't just have isolated programs. We're going to have to build a system where you all know where to plug in and where you can get resources as a teacher, where you can have parents find resources, where we can get the kinds of resources our kids need. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're working on to get to that bigger system. We've worked with partners across disciplines throughout Arizona. We've developed a framework for Arizona's early childhood system, and it's called the system, it is called the Framework for Early Childhood System. Includes key school readiness indicators and benchmarks that we're monitoring for progress. When we use this much taxpayers' money, we also have to be accountable for the money that we spend. And so it is really incumbent upon all of us to make sure if we're doing the right thing, if we're not doing the right thing. If we're not, then we need to change the direction that we're going, right? We need to make sure that we're using this money in an effective way. We've implemented a comprehensive approach to quality early learning that is impacting 41,500 kids. That's quality first. Through more than 800 child care centers and family child care homes. That's the STAR rating system that I know you all know about. These centers are receiving, homes are receiving coaching and support to improve quality through early learning strategies. There's TEACH. How many of you are familiar with TEACH, Early Childhood Arizona? And I see that there are some of you that are. We now have 610 teachers and young children who receive scholarships to expand their working skills to work with kids birth to 5. We care about you as educators as much as we care about our children, and about your welfare as much as we care about the welfare of children in the state of Arizona. So we want to provide professionals opportunities. It's very expensive to go to school. We want to provide you the opportunity and help you find scholarships, and that's part of what we do. And another thing that we do for professionals in the field is called rewards. And we have over 1,452 early childhood educators that receive a stipend, get a little extra money, and we reward longevity and continuous learning if you stay in a classroom and keep your expertise there where it really matters. So we hope that we have also started to address the kinds of things that professionals need in our field too. That is, frankly, you're overworked and underpaid, right? Typically in this field. And so what is it that we can do to nurture and care about those people who are working with our children?